Hello and welcome to episode 72 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. Two of my favorite ladies will be on the show today. Of course, my wife, Courtney, would be my favorite. She'll be here later to talk about our stay earlier this year at Universal's Cabana Bay Resort. This is a value resort within walking distance of Volcano Bay, Islands of Adventure, and Universal Studios Florida. Our stay was a few months ago, but I believe all of the information holds true about this really great hotel. Before that, our good friend Sarah Says will continue her list of free things to do at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. You can hear the first part of the conversation last week in episode 71, but today's talk will focus mainly on free things for the kids. You won't want to miss it. First, as many of you know, I'm not even in the United States right now. Currently, I'm in Ireland for my 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way to raise awareness and money in the fight against domestic violence. My wife, Courtney, and my co-host, Sarah Says, and Marissa from Chicago worked incredibly hard for me to make sure that we could schedule these episodes for the 2 months while I'm taking a little break from the hustle and bustle of constant content creation. This doesn't mean that I'm not checking in on social media. You can catch me on Twitter at Rick_ear and of course at TGTT Podcast. My posts won't be nearly as frequent, but you can follow along with my journey. As I mentioned, I'm trying to raise money and awareness for domestic violence victims and survivors. We've teamed up with CASA of Pinellas County in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. CASA has been reliable for years in their mission to help those who have suffered in domestic violence situations. The main reason we decided to pick CASA as the charity for this endeavor is that we know every dollar will go to the cause. There are no processing fees, and the money doesn't even have to go through me first. Even while I'm in another country, your donations will be helping actual people. We have not made a dime off of this podcast in almost a year and a half. That was never our primary goal. We want to put out positivity in the world, make lasting friendships, and actually help people. To be a part of that mission, please donate at casapinellas.org/walkwithrick/ that is CASAPINELLAS.org/walkwithrick/. The link can also be found in the YouTube description. Now let's welcome Sarah Says. Sarah, why don't you pick up where you left off on our list of free things at Walt Disney World and Disneyland?
Okay, so let's move on to the kiddos. I have a few for those that are specifically for kids. I'm assuming if you're an adult and you ask that unless it's like something that is just not appropriate, they will tell you yes. But one is at, I believe it is Animal Kingdom, and it's the Wilderness Explorer Scavenger Hunt. Where you can go and I believe it's you're kind of like, oh my God, what's his name? What's the kid's name from Up? Russell, where you are a wilderness explorer, just like Russell, and you go around and do different things and earn badges. And so that could be really fun for your kiddo. Maybe they're a Boy Scout, maybe they're a Girl Scout. Maybe they just want to be like Russell, and they can do that through Animal Kingdom.
Yes, so Wilderness Explorers kind of based on Russell from Up. This is something that adults can do as well.
Oh, cool.
It's another one of those things where you go around a Walt Disney World theme park and it gives you an excuse to talk to the cast members and try to learn something that you maybe wouldn't have asked before without trying to get this badge or sticker or whatever. You're trying to complete what is essentially a scavenger hunt. But by doing that, you get to see more of what the park has to offer. And Wilderness Explorers is a big, very, very, very popular thing to do at Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know about this. I learned about this by my research.
And I don't know if you have this on your list, but while we're at Disney's Animal Kingdom, I am going to talk about one of my absolute favorite free things to do at Walt Disney World. It's available at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Over at Disneyland, it's in Disney's California Adventure, although I believe it has a different name, and this is the Animation Academy or the animation experience, a Disney animator will run you through the process of drawing a Disney character, and it is awesome. It is one of my favorite experiences in all of Walt Disney World. We did it so many times when I was at Disney's California Adventure. I just couldn't get enough of it. I almost did it a couple times in a day the one time because I was like, oh, I don't know if I really like the character we did this time, but I see later in the day they're going to be doing this character, and I would love to draw Winnie the Pooh or something. It even shows up at some of the festivals, like Festival of the Arts. They'll do this at Epcot. If you ever have a chance to do it, you might think, I have absolutely no artistic skill. They are going to run you through the process of making something that at least looks decent enough to put the picture on your social media and brag a little bit. And in the end, that's all we're all trying to do in life, right? So try the animation experience, the Animation Academy, whatever it's called, at the particular park where you are visiting. Don't skip it. Don't think this is something just for the kids. This is something a whole family can do, and the kids can make fun of dad because dad's isn't as good as theirs or whatever. And then you get this free drawing that you get to take home as a free souvenir.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I actually did not have that on my list. I thought about it, but then for some reason it didn't go on my list. And it's funny that you mentioned too that to check the board for different characters, because when we went in, I didn't know there was such a thing until we exited the Animation Academy, and there it was that we could have picked throughout the day, because I swear every time I have done it, it is Donald Duck. Every single time. Even with my parents, when I went with them, it was Donald Duck. So make sure you check, see if there's a board, see if there's an animal, excuse me, a character that you may want to draw that you can come back for later as well.
And I don't believe at Animal Kingdom they tell you that far in advance. I think they just tell you who's going now and who's going to be next.
Oh, nice.
But it's still an incredible attraction. It's basically an attraction. I'm just going to call it that. So move on to your next one for the kids here.
Okay, so my next one is Epcot exclusive, and this one seems really cool. I really want to do this, but it is KidCot at Epcot, and I actually had to make sure this was still going because, with COVID, you just don't know. But what you can do is you can discover the World Showcase and pick up, I believe it's like activity cards in each country, and there is on the Walt Disney World website there. You can look it up, and it gives you a list of every place to stop in each pavilion that your kids can do an experience and learn a little bit more about the culture of that specific area that you're in. So I think that's a really cool, not only is it fun for kids and parents and families and people just hanging out, but also you get to learn something really cool about these countries.
So while Sarah was talking about that, here at my desk, I picked up all of the cards from Epcot KidCot that I have at my desk here in my office. And I picked these up for just such an occasion because I knew we would eventually end up talking about this, even though I wasn't thinking we'd talk about it on this episode. It didn't cross my mind. As an adult, you can do them. Just walk around and pick them up at the different World Showcase pavilions. I've done it because the back of the card serves as like a mini coloring book. It just has like one frame from a coloring book that has to do with some Disney characters and that particular country being represented in World Showcase. They also come with a little sticker that talks about the country. The one for Germany, which I'm looking at right now, has a bear wearing a very traditional German lederhosen outfit and playing an accordion. And it just gives you a little bit of detail. I'm not going to do spoilers for all of them, but for Germany, it says a treat with a twist. If you want to find a bakery in Germany, just look for the pretzel hanging above the shop door. It's the emblem of the Bakers Guild and Chippendale's new favorite treat. And then it says the capital city is Berlin. And it just is a nice little thing to get your kids interested in being in Epcot's World Showcase. I know a lot of parents and adults in general use Epcot's World Showcase as an excuse to drink. They use it as an excuse to snack. And
Yes.
that's not always the most interesting thing for the kids. They're not getting on as many rides. Now, that's changing with Frozen Ever After and Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. But this gives kids something to do, something to see at each of these World Showcase pavilions. It gives them something to look forward to seeing, to meeting new cast members who will tell them a little bit about the country. Now that we have that international representation returning to Epcot's World Showcase, you'll get a little better interaction when you do KidCot. Like, I have a cast member friend who's from Australia, and there is no Australian pavilion, but sometimes she's at the KidCot in Mexico. Well, what does she know about Mexico? So now that international representation will be returning and is returning, that makes KidCot an even cooler experience.
That's really cool. Because like I said, I had no idea about it. And reading about it, so as those of you who are friends with me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, know I do homeschool currently because my son does have special needs that I need to help with. And in my brain, I was like, this is a whole homeschool day when we are on vacation. He gets to learn all about all these countries and history and cool things. So if you're a homeschool parent like I am, but you don't know what you're doing, like I don't know what I'm doing. This is a cool experience to think about, to teach your kids about stuff. And even on vacation, if they go to traditional private school, you can still teach them something and they don't even realize it most of the time. It's awesome.
Daisy and Minnie love to play the taokao drums, one of the most popular musical instruments in Japan. These drums have a very loud, deep sound and can be as large as a car. The capital city is Tokyo, and then on the back of, obviously this is the Japan card, is a little coloring book segment where you can see Daisy and Minnie serving as the drummers that everybody loves at the Japan Pavilion in Epcot's World Showcase. So it's just a really, really fun thing that is, like you said, free. And there's just not a ton of free stuff in Walt Disney World, although we did find some. The Iron Lady, bonjour from Paris. Goofy is waiting in the square to meet the Iron Lady. I guess he doesn't know that the Iron Lady is a nickname for the Eiffel Tower. She stands more than 1,000 feet tall. Capital city, Paris. And then there's Goofy sitting on some chairs, eating some fine French food, and just staring at the Eiffel Tower. So
nice.
Something cool to pick up when you're in Epcot and to keep the kids occupied when you're trying all those fancy adult foods and maybe fancy adult drinks in World Showcase.
Yeah, so that is the end of my list. I'm sure there are more. I know that people go all the time and you find all this really cool stuff. So don't hesitate to reach out to the Tall Guy Talks Travel podcast to let us know of more freebies that aren't magical moments. Like I said, we're trying to stay away from those because we don't want people to expect them. They're magical for a reason. What was the other one we were talking about before we started recording? That it used to be Kim Possible, then it was Agent P, but we don't know if it's back yet.
So we're definitely having a hard time finding exactly when this new DuckTales experience in Epcot's World Showcase is returning or if it has returned. But like you said, Sarah, it was themed to Kim Possible, and then it was themed to Phineas and Ferb, and now it was supposed to start in 2020, I believe, and be DuckTales, but then it got pushed back because of everything happening, and we don't have to go over why, because that is almost ubiquitous at this point. But we are hoping that this DuckTales sort of scavenger hunt through World Showcase will start sometime soon, and we'll try to give you some updates on that when and if it does return. It actually seems like something I would like to try and then do a podcast where we sort of talk about the experience. But I know you also had one that really would appeal to me and probably not to the kiddos. But
Yes.
you told me about this and I didn't know about it, and I'm going to have to do a lot more research into it and try to do this one. So why don't you tell me about this?
So Disney owns a lot of wilderness area. We know we have Fort Wilderness. There's this around there as well, but it is a little off Disney property. I don't exactly know where, but I'm sure with enough research we could find out. But they do have extended mile hiking trails that you can do for free. And Disney does not charge you for these because they are part of protected Florida wildlands. So you can actually look up around the Disney resorts where you can go and you can hike these areas for extended periods of time. I mean, you can't camp there, but I mean, they're very long. So as we know, Rick is doing his pilgrimage in Ireland, which is what, 620 miles. It's not going to be that long, but maybe up to like 20 miles or so that you can actually hike these Florida wildlands around Disney property.
And I'm just going to say, if you do the research into these and decide that you want to do one of them, understand that 20 miles, especially depending on what time of year in Florida, is a grueling, grueling task. So don't just think this is a free thing to do around Walt Disney World. I'm going to do it, and it's going to be just a little more strenuous. 20 miles of hiking is a lot worse than even 20 miles of walking in a theme park. I know some of us have put up those huge walking mile days where we do 9, 12, sometimes 15 miles of walking on a theme park day. But when you're doing something, especially out in nature in a state like Florida, don't take that lightly. Make sure you do your research. Make sure that you're bringing enough water. Make sure that you have all of those different things. Because I, like Sarah mentioned, have the Ireland Way 620-mile pilgrimage that I am doing, but I also do 20-mile hikes, 40-mile, 2-day hikes in Florida periodically. It is one of my many interests that don't have to do with theme parks. I train for this stuff. I go to the gym specifically to be ready for these things, and 20 miles is still something that will beat me up for the next day. So just be aware of that. But it is something cool and free.
One thing too is that I have, when I was reading, to make sure as well that when you are researching, like Rick said, make sure you're researching, because potentially some of these trails are not open anymore, or they're not open right now. And that could be too because it is wildlands. Wildlands aren't really touched like make things. So it's not always taken care of in a way that some hiking trails that you may be used to are. So you may get there and it's not even open because there is no trail to hike anymore. So definitely, like Rick said, do your research, but get to enjoy these really fun, free hiking trails.
And as somebody who is at least a novice runner who used to be a very serious runner, there are some of the best running trails and running courses you will ever find at some of these Walt Disney World resorts. I know when I went in 2018 on a vacation when I still lived in Arizona and I was training for my first marathon. So every morning I would get up at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, because before a full park day, I had to get in my 7 to 5 miles that I wanted to do that morning. And we were staying at All Star Movies, and I would do laps around the parking lot, and then I would get onto a running trail that would take me past All Star Music and then past All Star Sports, and then I'd cross the road right there by that McDonald's that anybody who travels around Walt Disney World property knows well, and then I'd run all the way up towards Coronado Springs, and then I'd turn around. That would be about 2 miles. I'd do that a couple times in the morning, and then I would be ready for breakfast and to take a shower and head out to the theme parks. Hourglass Lake is by Art of Animation and Pop Century. That is a beautiful course to run. If you are a runner, take advantage of these free courses. Caribbean Beach, between Caribbean Beach and Disney's Riviera Resort. There used to actually be a small race there every week before the pandemic shut down the parks. I don't believe that has come back. It was not free, but it was something like $15, and you got a pin to say that you completed it. There are a lot of great courses. Now, from the Grand Floridian, they have extended a walkway to Magic Kingdom. So now, unfortunately, you can't go the whole way unless you're going through security. But you can go from just before Magic Kingdom and run around past the Grand, past the Poly, run right towards the TTC, and then loop around and get your running miles in there. You can run around these two beautiful resorts and then almost to Magic Kingdom before the security stop. All of this stuff is available and doesn't cost you a dime at Walt Disney World. So, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you for doing the heavy lifting on this one, bringing a lot of the information that was able to turn into 2 episodes worth of conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was really fun, and I hope people can actually use these, that you listeners are going to use some of these. I hope, Rick, you go check some of these out that you didn't know about. Go get Courtney a free necklace. And yeah, no, it was great. Thanks for having me back.
And sometime soon, we're not just going to talk about things that are a great value, things that are free, but we're going to talk about ways to not get sucked in to spending the big money on things at Walt Disney World or Disneyland that cost a lot in the parks, but you can bring with you and are much, much cheaper, or other different ways to save money in these theme parks. Sarah, you're the best. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
This is Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. My wife, Courtney, is getting ready to join us right now to talk about staying on property at Universal Orlando Resort earlier this year. Thanks for being here, Court.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So today we're going to be talking about our somewhat recent stay at Cabana Bay at Universal Orlando Resort. This is actually a value resort at Universal, and I'm going to tell you the truth. We got charged per night, and there were some nights that we paid like half of what we would pay to stay at one of the All-Stars at Walt Disney World. I'm not putting down the All-Stars at Walt Disney World, but this resort, Cabana Bay at Universal Orlando Resort, is much, much better than the All-Stars and much, much cheaper, at least depending on the night. So just a couple things to get out of the way. If you want to park your car overnight at Cabana Bay, it's $18 per night to park your car there. So take that into consideration. There's free bus transportation to the theme parks and to City Walk. You can also walk if you're a little bit adventurous. You can make it. It's not undoable. But since we're annual pass holders, and with my annual pass, it comes with free parking, we just decided to drive every morning and then drive back. Another thing I do want to state is depending on which parking garage they park you, when you're at the theme parks, when you're leaving to drive back to Cabana Bay, you might have to make a really long kind of circle around the area, and it's not all that convenient. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Let's start, however, by talking about this room, because we got a 1-bedroom family suite, but it was nice.
Yeah, both of us were blown away and impressed with this room. We had basically a small living room separate from the bedroom area and the bathroom area with a sliding door, and it just made it feel so much bigger. Definitely it was bigger. We could relax and unwind a little bit more with a little bit of space. There was a kitchenette with sink, microwave, pretty big mini fridge, couch, sitting chairs, coffee table, and a TV. Then when you went into the bedroom, you had another TV, 2 beds, closet, and the vanity area was split up where you had a separate room just for the toilet area and another vanity in a separate room with the shower. The theming of the resort is a 50s, 60s style retro Florida type of resort, and they definitely kept that theming in the rooms. So you had some, fun 60s colors with orange, turquoise, brown, and, little accent pillows, some nice accents or architecture on the walls and art on the walls. And it just felt kind of special, and it did not feel like a value resort. Also very clean, new feeling, not feeling run down. Just a great overall room. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I'm going to say as a value resort, I feel like we definitely got at least a moderate style room. I understand on the outside it doesn't necessarily look as fancy as, say, a moderate at Walt Disney World, but the inside is every bit as fancy as a moderate at Walt Disney World. Also, depending on where in the resort your room is located, you might have really good views of Volcano Bay, the water park at Universal Orlando Resort. We actually had some interesting views of the backside of Islands of Adventure. If we just walked a couple doors down, we could see Hogwarts Castle. We could see Velocicoaster running from our room. That's a pretty cool view for a moderate. Let's be honest, if this was at Walt Disney World, they would be calling that a theme park view room and charging $700 a night for it. So this was a great value. It really is the definition of a value resort because it was a great room and it wasn't that expensive considering. Now, some other amenities that are available at Cabana Bay. We took advantage of the Bay Liner Diner. We got breakfast there. Why don't you talk about what you got for breakfast, Court?
Sure. So they have a pretty extensive food court. They have, let's say, 3 or 4, I believe, different kind of windows with some different options for you. And we chose to do a make-your-own omelet. This was kind of a little cafeteria style, but definitely good, fresh ingredients. You picked what vegetables and or meat you wanted and cheese. Then the omelet was prepared freshly with those ingredients, and you got a side. I got breakfast potatoes with mine. Pretty reasonably priced. Definitely good portions and a great way to start your theme park day with a filling meal.
I also did the make your own omelet. I got one that was vegetarian, of course not vegan because they do use eggs. I also had cheese on mine, but I had mushrooms, spinach, onions, peppers, tomatoes. It was really, really good. And like you said, a nice way to start a theme park day by having a real hefty breakfast. I also had the French toast, and while I would like to go into a lot of description of it, you know what French toast is when it's good, and that's basically what I got. And I had the breakfast potatoes. I'm a huge potato fan, as people who listen to the show know, and they were really, really good. I also got dinner there one night. It was pretty simple. I got a vegan wrap with potato salad. The potato salad was really, really good. The veggie wrap was fine. It was a little dry to me. There was a lot of vinegar in it, but sometimes to do a vegan wrap, you do what you can, And then I also picked up a salad that came with dressing and it had eggs in it and some other items. But you also got to keep the bowl. And it was only like $9.99 or something like that. And I got my annual pass holder discount on it. So I would say that's a really, really good deal if you're looking for something at the end of the day that's not super filling, but will just serve to balance out all the sweets and all the junk food that you ate at the theme park that day. Big thumbs up for the Bayliner Diner. Courtney, there are also some amenities there that we didn't try, but definitely add to the value of this resort.
I think both of us were just, again, blown away by this resort. They have huge pools with sand and beaches, a large lazy river. There's also a bowling alley upstairs from the lobby. And then I know, Rick, you're a person who looks for gyms or fitness centers, and you noticed their fitness center, which had an awesome view.
I didn't end up using the fitness center when I was there because I didn't pack a lot of my workout stuff and we weren't there for all that long. But the treadmills were looking right out over the pool, so were some of the stationary bikes. I saw people lifting weights. They had some free weights. They had a lot of different equipment. You always end up comparing to Walt Disney World resorts. Like, it's inevitable that the Universal to Walt Disney World comparisons will be made anytime you're doing a review like this. Disney does have impressive fitness centers with their deluxe resorts, but their value resorts don't have fitness centers like this. Their value resorts don't have fitness centers. This is an amazing amenity to have available to you at Universal Orlando Resort, and I think they need a lot of credit for providing it. A lot of people do like to keep up with their exercise routines when they're on vacation. I know when we went on vacation to Walt Disney World in 2018, I was keeping track of my miles all year in running, and I would get up at like 3, 4 in the morning and run 7 miles, 5 miles every morning when we were on vacation. If I would have had an indoor treadmill at a fitness center and I could have done those miles without the humidity and all of that other stuff that goes along with Florida, that would have made it easier. I would have enjoyed it even more. This is a great amenity to provide for your guests.
So overall, I think it's a great resort, definitely a great option. Really, no matter your party size as well. I definitely highly recommend this. We didn't really have as much time to enjoy it as we would like because we were staying pretty active for about 4 pretty full days in the theme parks in the area. But what we were able to experience and the comfortability of the room itself, absolutely loved it. And on top of it, it is a great value. The price that we paid and the amenities that you get, again, the roominess of the room, the feel of the room, it being comfortable, just really can't recommend this enough.
And whether you're talking about Cabana Bay at Universal Orlando Resort or the Endless Summer Resorts, you are probably going to be paying less than some off-property options, and you still get the benefits of staying on property at Universal Orlando Resort. So you get early park entry to at least one of the theme parks. I know at times when they get closer to hitting capacity, they're trying to give the benefit of the doubt to people who are staying on property. So since you're paying about the amount you would be paying to stay off property, even if you're going to Walt Disney World, I still think this is a benefit if you're paying so much less to give these resorts a try. I know back in 2021 when we stayed at Endless Summer Resort, we saw people there who were on their Walt Disney World vacations, but it was more affordable for them to stay at Endless Summer and get transportation over to Walt Disney World every morning than to stay on Walt Disney World property. Now, at that time, the All-Stars hadn't reopened yet, but that's just something to keep in mind, to always be looking at some of these options to try to find the one that makes the most sense for the way you travel. Courtney, thank you so much for joining me again.
And thank you so much, Rick, for having me.
For my fantastic wife, Courtney, and my incredible friend, Sarah Says, I'm Rick Doherty, and this has been Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Please consider donating to Casa of Pinellas County in honor of my 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way. CasaPinellas.org/walkwithrick. That is CasaPinellas.org/walkwithrick/. The link can also be found in the YouTube description. We will be back next Thursday with episode 73 when Sarah Says will actually try her hand at hosting duties. Like all successful sitcoms of the 80s and 90s, we're going to do our version of a clip show. You'll get to hear parts of previous conversations with Steven from the YouTube channel A Life in the Parks, and Instagram influencer The Sarah Enigma, who talks about being a Disney and Harry Potter fan who deals with chronic illness. It will be a fun way to look back on some great conversations. Until then, have a great week.